Hi, I'm Jared Whitman. I'm here with John Russell of the Business Source. This is the pursuit of being a stand-up leader. We're breaking down John's book, Be a Stand-Up Leader, the ABCs of getting the job done right, chapter by chapter. And we are in the O's of this podcast recording session, which is a lot of fun. And today's topic is objections in selling, which is a big topic. I think.
Have you ever made a proposal?
Yes.
And had people say no?
Yes.
What do you do?
Usually ask questions,
right?
To understand what about the proposal was different than our conversation, or ask if I can reach out to them again in the future.
Right. Those are good answers. And there's a lot of good answers. And there's some answers that aren't so good.
Yeah.
We're not going to take a deep dive on this subject because it's huge.
Mm-hmm.
There's whole books written on the subject, and we may develop a course on this subject in the future. But for today, I just want to do an overview of what's in the book so that you can begin to think about objections in a positive way. For years and years and years, as I was growing in my career in sales, a lot of the training was how to handle objections, which are basically a million reasons why I'm not going to go ahead with your proposal.
Right.
So handling objections has always been part of the process. And instead of taking you through a long and boring training session, which may come later, and it will be long and boring even then.
It won't be boring. Just
remember, the best advice I can give you is that objections are okay and they're a good thing. And actually, you want to be looking for objections, because an objection is in a way is a buying signal. If they say, I don't like your microphone cover, what is it that you don't like about it?
Right.
They're telling you that they want more information about that microphone cover. Ask probing questions.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think that way? What is it about that you're concerned about? What is the real underlying reason why your prospect isn't ready to buy? And you may have to ask 5 or 6 different questions. Why,
Yep.
until you can get to what the root problem is. Either I can't afford it, or I'm afraid it won't do what I expect it to, or your competitor has a better price. I mean, there's a lot of different reasons, but what is it that your customer really wants? And you have to determine that, and they're not going to tell you that up front. They may not even know until you take them through the questioning process to help uncover what the real objection is.
Yeah.
At the bottom of 4 or 5 different concerns that they have.
One of my clients does sales coaching for Christian entrepreneurs and solopreneurs. And we just did a podcast together where he said, isolate the objection.
Mm-hmm.
So if they have an objection, then you just kind of dial in and, like you said, drop the why 5 times to really get in there and understand what it is that's the real roadblock to them moving forward. Because if you've had a conversation with them and you've discovered what they're looking for and how you can bring value, how you can help them out, what their vision is of the future, building that gap of where they are now and where they want to be. And you've kind of like discovered all the stuff in that gap, and you've had the conversation with them, and they have an objection, just really dialing in and isolating that objection to work forward on it.
Yeah. We need to find out what the customer really wants.
Yeah.
And we need to be able to understand. You talk about isolating it. One of the things that I was trained to do is to ask the question, if we can solve that situation, is there anything else preventing you from moving forward today?
Right.
Like, is this one of many objections that you're just throwing at me?
Yeah.
If we can solve this problem, is that a deal maker? And you have to work through that because they don't want to necessarily show their cards that, yeah, if you solve this concern of mine, there won't be any other objections coming up.
Yeah.
But that's part of this whole handling objections thing. Is it really about the money? Or is it about one of a dozen other things?
Right. Yeah, I think it comes down to like relationship, time, and money. Those are the top 3 things that hold people back, or also the unknown. Like you're risk averse, so not understanding the full value of something, or not seeing what it looks like on the back end after all of this work is done in the implementation. So I totally understand. And I also think that people don't want to be sold to.
Yeah.
That's another thing. So
I
some
agree.
people just have like all these objections that they're making it rain, and you're doing the balancing act of trying to, isolate them. And I don't understand.
Some objections, or some people's objections, don't go away.
Right.
On purpose. They just are never going to agree.
Right.
Customize the sale to meet your client's needs, then all objections fade away. When you put a proposal together, and I'm going to think about it more like a business-to-business transaction.
Yeah.
We used to do preliminary proposals. And the purpose of a preliminary proposal is to walk the prospect through each aspect of the solution, checking off with them as you go. Is there anything that you'd change here? Is there anything else we left out? Is there anything else that's going to prevent you from moving forward with this?
Okay.
And then you take all these notes and you go back to your office and you write the final proposal.
Okay. Because
it's based on what they told you they'd like and what they don't like in the preliminary proposal.
So do you have how many, I know we're getting into the weeds here, but like how many meetings have you had, or are you going through and you have a pre-proposal there, a template basically,
right?
And you're filling it in based on the conversation that you're having. What's that process look like?
So it can vary, but I'll give you an example. Let's say, for the sake of discussion, that we're selling sales training, which is what part of my background is. And so we're cold calling on prospects across North America. Mm-hmm. Sales teams of every kind of business to business model. So we connect up with a business leader and they say, I like what you've done. Why don't you put a proposal together for me? And we go through the client needs analysis process, which is to really develop a complete understanding of what their needs are and what their wants are, so that we can determine whether or not our solution is going to solve those problems. So we do the heavy duty, let's say the meeting takes 2 or 3 hours. We're either, in a perfect case, we're face to face sitting in a room and we're talking in great detail about the current situation, what the problems are, what the solutions are, what our recommendations would be. And then we're taking all those notes and we take that back to the office and we put together a preliminary proposal. And so that preliminary proposal, let's just say it takes a few hours to put together, maybe a half a day.
Yeah.
And then we present that, and then we walk the client through this preliminary proposal with checking for acceptance or changes at every point during the preliminary proposal.
Okay, that makes sense.
So you come back out of that and you've got another page of notes about, yes, that's the way it is, or no, we need to change that. So you further customize and further tailor your presentation and your proposal based on exactly what they're looking for, what they ask for, and what your solution provides. Then you bring that back through and they say, let's say they like it, to me, that's just the green light.
Right.
All that is permission to proceed.
Yep.
You have cash, no checks yet.
Right.
What you really need to do at that point is to dial down and begin to identify what the prospect's expectations are.
Okay.
Because you have to make sure that your solution is going to meet and exceed those expectations so that when the transaction's over and when the agreement takes place and when the sales training's delivered, we can measure the success and we know whether or not it was a good investment or not by how much they went out and sold. This person's sales went from 100,000 to 250,000 applying your sales training.
Right.
That's a darn good investment at that level. So objections are misunderstood as a negative non-buying signal. Really, objections are what you want because that's where the prospect is going to tell you what you need to do to change your approach so that you can meet their needs. Prospects tell you what their underlying needs are when they object to a proposal. So my advice is to welcome objections as the opportunity to clarify any concerns and misunderstanding the prospect has about buying from you. Remove the risk that your product won't provide the desired outcome the customer is buying your product or service for. So there's a lot of ways to handle objections, and we'll get into that at a later date. If you need help right now, let us know. We'll help you right now. But if you are working through your sales process and you're finding out that a lot of your salespeople are having problems overcoming objections, then let's get together. Let's take a step back and let's reframe objections as a positive tool and a positive buying cue and put objections to work for your business instead of against it.
Yep. I agree.
That's it. We'll get into more detail on all the different ways you can handle objections in the future. But for today, that does it for this segment. Thanks for being with us. We look forward to seeing you next time.